Chosen one, you were led here for a reason. Not by accident, not by chance, and not because you were simply scrolling. Something in your spirit was drawn to this message, because it carries a confirmation you've been needing, a truth your soul has quietly known but couldn't put into words. You've been walking through a season that felt heavier than usual, a season where the battles felt personal, the silence felt loud, and the pressure felt strangely intentional. You didn't understand why the road was harder for you than for others. You didn't understand why you had to lose so much, change so deeply, or fight so quietly. But this is the moment where things begin to make sense. Because the truth is, you are being tested, shaped, purified, and strengthened for the assignment on your life. Not everyone is called. Not everyone is chosen. Not everyone carries a purpose that threatens darkness. But you do. That's why you felt different. That's why you couldn't fit in. That's why you were pulled away from certain people, places, and paths. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Chosen one, the battles you endured were not signs of abandonment. They were signs of elevation. Every breakdown carried a hidden breakthrough. Every delay carried protection. Every lonely night carried instruction. And here you are, still standing, still seeking, still fighting to grow, even when no one knew the weight you were carrying. This message is your confirmation. You passed the test, not because you were perfect, but because you refused to quit. You kept walking when your legs shook. You kept praying when your heart broke. You kept believing when everything seemed against you. You were led here because God wants you to know the season you just survived was not the end. It was the proving ground. Now He's about to reveal why it had to be you. Chapter 1. The calling you didn't ask for. Chosen one, you never asked for this path. You didn't wake up one day and declare, "I'm ready to carry a spiritual assignment." You didn't volunteer for the storms, the isolation, or the spiritual weight placed on your shoulders. You were simply pulled, drawn by a force bigger than your understanding. It started quietly. Small signs, subtle shifts, moments of deep inner knowing. You began to sense things others overlooked. You noticed patterns, felt warnings, saw truth behind people's masks. And even when you tried to ignore it, the calling kept tugging at you, whispering that you were different, set apart, marked with purpose. But being chosen doesn't mean being flawless. It means being trusted with an assignment that requires resilience, clarity, and spiritual depth. And most of that depth comes from pain. You didn't get stronger because life was easy. You got stronger because you survived things that should have broken you. You may not have said a loud yes at the beginning. Maybe you hesitated. Maybe you ran. Maybe you questioned why God selected you when you felt unqualified, unprepared, or unworthy. But here's the truth. Your calling didn't need a loud agreement. It only needed a willing heart. And willingness doesn't always look like confidence. It sometimes looks like showing up while scared, continuing while confused, and trying again after failing. Chosen one, you didn't walk away. You didn't reject what God placed inside you. Even when you felt overwhelmed, misunderstood, or alone, something in you kept moving forward. Something in you kept listening, kept hoping, kept reaching for the light even when darkness pressed in. You may not realize it, but that persistence was your yes. That endurance was your acceptance of the assignment. And heaven saw it. Heaven counted it. The calling you didn't ask for became the calling you grew into. And every challenge, every heartbreak, every unexpected shift was shaping you for who you were always meant to become. You didn't choose the calling, but the calling chose you because God knew exactly what was inside you. Strength, courage, sensitivity, discernment, a heart that could be trusted with truth. And now, chosen one, you are stepping into the realization of what has been growing in you all along. Chapter 2. The Wilderness Season. Chosen one, every person with a divine assignment must pass through the wilderness. It is not a punishment. It is not a rejection. It is a necessary part of your spiritual formation. The wilderness is the place where everything familiar falls away, where your usual sources of comfort stop working, where the things you depended on are stripped from your hands, not to leave you empty, but to teach you where your true strength comes from. In this season, your prayers felt like they bounced off the walls. You cried out for answers, but the silence grew louder. People you thought would stay, drifted away. Opportunities you prayed for, collapsed. Plans you carefully built, crumbled, for reasons you couldn't understand. And in the middle of all that confusion, a question rose in your heart. God, where are you? But chosen one, the wilderness was never evidence of God's absence. It was proof that he was preparing you. Because in the wilderness, God doesn't shout, he shapes. He teaches you how to walk by faith instead of validation. He teaches you how to stand alone without losing your identity. He teaches you how to trust him when you can't trace him. This season forced you to confront yourself, your fears, your wounds, your patterns, your doubts. And even though it hurt, it purified you. It peeled away the layers of insecurity, pride, people-pleasing, and broken beliefs. It exposed the parts of you that needed healing, so your purpose wouldn't destroy you later. You weren't just being tested, you were being transformed. God was building qualities in you that can't be learned when life is easy. Endurance when things take longer than expected. Strength when support disappears. Patience when doors stay closed. Faith when nothing looks promising. Identity when rejection comes. Clarity when confusion surrounds you. These weren't punishments. They were spiritual muscles being built. And yes, you stumbled. You cried until your body ached. You questioned your worth. You felt like giving up more times than you can count. But you didn't quit. You didn't turn back. You didn't abandon your walk even when you felt spiritually exhausted. That persistence is the proof that you passed the test. Because the wilderness isn't about perfection. It's about staying even when you feel broken. It's about holding on to God when you don't understand him. It's about trusting the process when the process feels painful. Chosen one, you may not realize it, but this was the season where heaven was watching you the closest. Not to judge you, but to strengthen you. Not to punish you, but to promote you. You came out with deeper faith, clearer eyes, a stronger spirit, a sharper discernment, and a heart that knows God in ways comfort could never teach. The wilderness didn't destroy you, it revealed you. And because you stayed, because you endured, because you didn't walk away, you passed the test. Chapter 3, The Hidden Years, Chosen One. Before God reveals you, he hides you. Not because you are unworthy, not because you are forgotten, but because greatness is shaped away from the crowd. There were seasons where it felt like your life was on pause, like everyone else was moving forward, while you remained unseen, unnoticed, uncelebrated. But those hidden years were not wasted years. They were sacred. This was the season where God worked on you privately, so he could trust you publicly later. He refined your character. He strengthened your spirit. He healed the wounds you didn't talk about. He aligned your heart with his values, so that when elevation came, you wouldn't lose yourself. In those hidden years, nobody applauded your obedience. No one saw the sacrifices you made. No one witnessed the spiritual battles you faced alone. You prayed quietly, forgave silently, and chose growth when it would have been easier to choose comfort. You could have taken shortcuts. You could have sought validation. You could have followed the crowd. But you didn't. You chose integrity when it cost you relationships. You chose patience when impatience felt easier. You chose healing instead of hiding your pain behind a polished mask. And even though you felt overlooked, you were never overlooked by heaven. God was watching every small decision, every silent victory, every tear you wiped away before anyone saw it. He saw you resist temptation when no one was around. He saw you walk away from environments that didn't match your assignment. He saw you protect your spirit when others tried to pull you into chaos. These were not small things. These were spiritual achievements, and they proved that your heart was ready for more. The hidden years also taught you something powerful: to stop depending on external applause, because if people had validated you too soon, you might have built your identity on their approval. But God wanted you to be anchored in him, not in opinions, not in praise, not in visibility. That's why he hid you, to protect you, to grow you, to prepare you. And now, chosen one, the very things you learned in private, your discipline, your humility, your discernment, your emotional maturity, are becoming the foundation of your next season. Because in God's timing, hidden things become revealed things. And what he builds in silence, he rewards in the open. Your faithfulness in the dark was not ignored, it was counted. Every quiet yes, Every disciplined choice, every moment you held onto hope without proof, all of it became proof that you were ready. Ready for the doors that are opening, ready for the influence that's being released, ready for the blessings that your character can now carry. Chosen one, the hidden years did not shrink you, they shaped you. And now, because you stayed faithful when no one was watching, you passed the test. Chapter 4, the voice you learned to hear. Chosen one of your greatest breakthroughs wasn't something you received, it was something you learned to recognize. You learned to hear the voice of God, not the loud voice, not the dramatic voice, but the gentle, steady, guiding whisper that most people overlook because they're too distracted to notice it. In the beginning, his voice felt faint. You doubted it. You questioned whether it was him or just your thoughts. You asked for confirmation, signs, and reassurance because you were afraid of being wrong. But over time, through trials, silence, and spiritual stretching, your spirit learned how to listen. There were moments when God spoke not through words, but through uneasiness, through the sudden heaviness that warned you someone wasn't right, through the peace that affirmed a decision your mind didn't fully understand yet, through the conviction that pulled you away from places, habits, and people that were not aligned with your purpose. You learned that God doesn't always speak to your ears. He speaks to your spirit, and your spirit was trained in the fire. Discernment was born in you, not because someone taught you the mechanics of hearing God, but because your circumstances forced you to depend on Him. When you lost the voices you used to trust, you leaned on His. When life pushed you to emotional exhaustion, you found Him in the stillness. When people betrayed you, His presence became the only place that felt safe. Chosen one, this wasn't a skill. It was a transformation. You learned how to tell the difference between fear and intuition, between flesh and spirit, between what looked good and what was actually good for you. Now, you don't chase after constant confirmations the way you once did. Why? Because you've experienced enough spiritual warfare to know the value of God's whisper. Because you've made enough painful choices to know that His direction always leads to protection, even when it feels uncomfortable at first. This ability didn't come to you cheaply. It came through heartbreak, through moments when God had to speak loudly by removing people, through seasons where He protected you by closing doors, through situations where He revealed the truth in ways you didn't expect. And now, your spirit recognizes Him. You sense His warnings before the danger comes. You feel His nudges before the blessing arrives. You hear His no, even when your heart wants a yes. You trust His timing, even when your flesh wants to rush. Chosen one, the voice of God didn't just become your guide, it became your anchor, your compass, your shield, your clarity in a world full of noise. And because you learned to hear Him when everything around you was loud and confusing, you passed the test. Chapter 5, the battles no one saw. Chosen one, there are wars you fought that no one will ever know about. Not because you were hiding, but because the battlefield was inside you. Your mind, your heart, your spirit. These were the places where the real warfare took place. And while people judged your silence, heaven witnessed your strength. There were days you woke up with a heaviness you couldn't explain. Nights when fear tried to swallow your faith. Moments when the enemy whispered lies into your spirit, trying to convince you that you were alone, forgotten, or unworthy. But even in those moments, you fought back. Not with physical weapons, but with prayer, persistence, and a stubborn refusal to let darkness win. Most people don't understand how exhausting spiritual warfare is, how draining it is to carry a calling that constantly attracts attacks, how tiring it feels to be strong for others while battling your own storms. But chosen one, you endured those battles quietly. You didn't ask for pity. You didn't beg for attention. You fought with dignity, with hope, with a strength that only God could have placed inside you. There were temptations that tried to distract you, but you resisted. There were old habits that tried to return, but you outgrew them. There were relationships that tried to pull you backwards, but you walked away. Those decisions didn't come from willpower alone. They came from spiritual maturity. You were learning how to guard your peace, your purpose, your anointing. And let's not forget the emotional battles, the loneliness that crept in, the disappointment that pierced your heart, the feeling of being misunderstood by people who didn't see the calling on your life. Still, you didn't allow bitterness to take root. You chose healing over hatred, growth over grudges, elevation over ego. Many of your victories happened in silence. Tears you cried, but wiped away before anyone noticed. Prayers you whispered in the dark, decisions you made that shifted your entire destiny. And through every unseen battle, one thing remained true. You kept going. That is what separates you from the rest. Not perfection, not constant confidence, but endurance. The ability to rise even when you feel empty. The courage to keep believing when everything inside you is tired. The faith to keep trusting God when you don't understand His plan. Chosen one, the battles you survived shaped you in ways comfort never could. They sharpened your discernment. They strengthened your wisdom. They deepened your reliance on God. They purified your intentions and elevated your spiritual authority. And now, heaven is acknowledging what you thought no one saw. You passed the test, not because life was easy, but because you refused to let the enemy break you. Chapter 6. The Strength You Didn't Know You Had. Chosen one of the greatest revelations of your journey was discovering the strength that had been inside you all along. Not the loud kind, not the kind that shows off, but the quiet, unshakable strength that only reveals itself when life pushes you to your breaking point. You didn't realize how strong you were until you had no choice but to be, until the people you depended on walked away, until the situations you thought would destroy you forced you to rise instead, until you reached moments where giving up seemed easier, but you didn't. This strength didn't appear suddenly. It was built over time, forged in disappointment, developed through adversity, strengthened through spiritual resistance. Every hard season stretched you, refined you, and expanded your capacity. And what's unique about your strength, chosen one, is that you never fully saw it in yourself. You mistook your endurance for just surviving. You mistook your courage for doing what needed to be done. You mistaken your growth for just trying. But heaven saw something different. Heaven saw a warrior rising, a leader forming, a vessel being shaped for something bigger than your current vision. Think about the moments you thought would break you. When you lost what you thought you couldn't live without. When betrayal felt like a knife to your spirit. When life shifted so suddenly you could barely breathe. When your heart was tired, your mind was overwhelmed, and your spirit felt drained, and yet you moved forward anyway. That is strength. You learned how to encourage yourself when no one else knew what you were going through. You learned how to protect your peace in environments full of chaos. You learned how to walk with God not just when the path was clear, but when the road was dark and uncertain. Your strength became spiritual, not emotional, not physical, but divine. It became the type of strength that comes from endurance, from faith, from choosing God again and again, even when life felt unfair. And because of that strength, you didn't collapse under pressure. You didn't lose yourself in heartbreak. You didn't abandon your purpose. You didn't let the wilderness redefine your worth. And here's the part you don't always acknowledge. You kept loving, even after being hurt. You kept believing, even after being disappointed. You kept hoping, even after being let down. That takes a level of strength most people will never understand. Chosen one, this chapter of your life wasn't about proving your strength to others. It was about discovering it within yourself. And as you look back, you'll realize something powerful. Everything that tried to break you only revealed what God already knew. You were stronger than the storm, stronger than the heartbreak, stronger than the doubt, stronger than the warfare. And because you tapped into that God-given strength when quitting felt easier, you passed the test. Chapter 7. The Rise After the Testing. Chosen one. Every test you endured was preparing you for this moment, your rise. Not a rise based on ego, attention, or validation, but a rise built on the strength, wisdom, and spiritual maturity you fought so hard to develop. You're stepping into a season where things will finally shift in your favor, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you are not the same person who entered the storm. You're wiser now, stronger now, more aware, more grounded, more in tune with God than ever before. This rise isn't loud. It's steady. It's intentional. It's the kind of elevation that comes from divine alignment, not human approval. There was a time when you questioned why everything had to be so difficult, why relationships ended, why doors closed, why the people you trusted changed, why God seemed silent. But now, as things begin to unfold, you're starting to understand. He wasn't taking things from you. He was preparing things for you. Your character was being shaped for the blessings you are about to hold. Your discernment was being sharpened for the opportunities that are coming. Your spirit was being strengthened so you wouldn't collapse under the weight of your own calling. You're rising because you learned the lessons. You're rising because you embrace the pruning instead of resisting it. You're rising because what was meant to break you actually built you. Your old self couldn't walk into this next level, but the version of you that survived the wilderness can. And here's the powerful truth. Your rise won't look like revenge. It will look like peace. It will look like clarity. It will look like doors opening without force, blessings flowing without begging, and connections forming without chasing. People who once doubted you will witness this transformation. Not because you need validation, but because God is about to show why He kept you hidden, protected, and tested. Your rise will be undeniable, not dramatic, effortless, not forced, ordained, not manufactured. Chosen one, this is your after season. After the heartbreak, after the loneliness, after the waiting, after the warfare. You didn't just survive the test. You outgrew what tried to limit you. You became the person the storm was designed to shape. And now heaven is declaring over you, rise, it is your time. You passed the test. Conclusion, walking forward as a victorious chosen one. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this journey, take a deep breath and let the truth settle in your spirit. You have been tested, refined, and prepared for a purpose far greater than you have imagined. Every trial, every silent battle, every season of waiting was not wasted. Every moment of doubt, every tear, every time you felt alone, all of it contributed to the person you have become. You are stronger, wiser, more discerning, and more spiritually mature than ever before. Remember this, being chosen is not about perfection. It is about faithfulness. It is about endurance. It is about responding to life's challenges with courage, humility, and trust in God, even when the world around you seems indifferent. You didn't quit when it would have been easier. You didn't compromise your integrity when shortcuts tempted you. You stayed the course when nobody applauded, and that is why you are victorious. As you move forward, understand that your life is a beacon. Your presence influences others in ways you may never fully comprehend. You carry a light that attracts both blessings and challenges, admiration and resistance, growth and refinement. This is part of your calling. The spiritual forces, both seen and unseen, will continue to watch, guide, and test you, but you are no longer unprepared. You have learned to hear the voice of God, trust His timing, and walk in alignment with your purpose. Your rise is not just for you, it is for those who will be inspired, healed, and awakened by your journey. Let every step you take reflect the lessons you've learned in the hidden years, the wilderness, and the battles no one saw. Stand firm in your strength, remain grounded in your faith, and embrace the divine destiny that has been reserved for you, chosen one. The storms you survived were not your undoing. They were your making. Your light cannot be dimmed, your calling cannot be denied, and your purpose cannot be thwarted. You passed the test. Walk forward boldly. Shine your light without fear and trust that every step is guided by the divine. Your journey is only beginning, and the world is waiting to witness the power of a faithful, risen, victorious, chosen one.